What's up, guys? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, joined by one of the craziest people I think that involved in this sport and maybe on this planet, Michael Chandler, UFC lightweight, who's coming off of a fight against Dustin Poirier, fight of the night again at UFC 281 in New York. I'm sure all of us saw the fight. It was about a week ago, so a week later, Michael, you're back home? Yeah, you in your home right now, or?
Yep, I am back. Well, I'm in my studio. I built a studio in my backyard so I
In your
can
backyard. Okay.
bring value to people. But yeah, man, just back home, and God, so happy to be home, man. I love what I do. I love the training. I love the competition. I love the amazing blessing that the sport has afforded me. But man, I love being home afterwards. It's my favorite thing. So
Of course, man, because those camps are long, right? And you do a lot of it in Florida, and then you get to go back home to Nashville, is what you're saying. You're back home to Nashville.
Yeah. So essentially, I made a decision years ago, 5 years ago or so. When we adopted my first son, Hap, I said, I'm flying home every single weekend, and if my fight career suffers because of it, so be it. I haven't really seen that happen, but it's been a great journey, and being at home with my wife and now two boys every single weekend, making sure they get their daddy time every single week is very important. And now I'm home for the foreseeable future. So I'm happy about that. Going to go pick up Hap from school here in a few minutes after this, and life is good, man.
For sure, man. That's cool that you do the trips back and forth on Saturdays, but obviously that's being at home for the weekend, and then being home for the entire week is a completely different thing, especially when you have kids.
It is. Yeah. But any moment is precious. I think it's, I think it definitely makes you appreciate, and just be where your feet are. Be exactly where you are, be present. It helps me do that, unplug for 2 days, and then go back into the fire Monday morning and get after it till Friday and fly back home.
So beyond that, beyond loving the family time, physically, how you feeling after that fight?
I feel great, man.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, obviously some black eyes and whatnot, but man, healing up really well. I take recovery extremely seriously. I've been in the hyperbaric chamber every single day, red light therapy bed, cryotherapy, hopping in the sauna, hopping in the cold plunge, tons of anti-inflammatories. I mean, you see anybody who follows me on Instagram sees the plethora of pills, the handful of pills and multivitamins and minerals and micronutrients and nutrients that I take every single day. And just I heal up really well. Body's a little bit sore here and there every time I sneezed or coughed for a couple of days. Just what people don't realize is just bearing down in those moments where you're picking a guy up, or you're throwing a hard punch, or you're getting a punch landed on you. You're flexing every muscle in your body. So your abs are sore, your ribs are sore, your chest is sore, your lungs are sore. That lasted a couple of days, and now I feel great, man. Just, getting my scans and x-rays and all that kind of stuff, making sure I'm healthy as an ox and ready to see what happens next.
Yeah. And those moments you're talking about, I mean, no one hits the red line like you do in this sport. I feel like those explosive moments. I mean, you were going past the, like if you're driving a car or something, you're running it past that red line all the time in those fights. As far as just morale wise, I mean, everyone's of course loving the fight. You're no stranger to that. It feels like every single fight that you've had in the UFC, and then even going back to Bellator, people have those types of reactions. But you're not a guy that's used to losing a lot over the course of your athletic career. So how has that been over the last 7 days?
Man, I will never, ever downplay or make excuses for a loss, but it seems like a recurring theme now, losing to Charles Oliveira, losing to Justin Gaethje, and losing to Dustin Poirier. Do I think I'm better than those guys? I think I've proven to lose to those guys, but I do think when you're fighting the upper echelon of guys in your weight class in the entire world of 8 billion people on the planet, and at 155 pounds, you're fighting the who's who, the toughest guys in the world, you're going to take losses. If me and Poirier fight 10 times, do I beat him a couple times? Do I beat him majority of the time? Do I beat him no times? I don't know. Same thing with Gaethje, same thing with Oliveira. You don't really know, but I know, you're within a gnat's eyelash of winning these fights in certain exchanges, or if a fight goes a different way, or one position goes a different way, or it isn't as bloody and as sweaty as Dustin Poirier and I were in that fight. Do I lose the ground? Do I lose the top control and get my back taken? Just, you can run through all of these different scenarios 1,000 different times, and morale is honestly very high. Like I said, going back to my first statement, I would never make an excuse or downplay a loss. I do not like losing, but losses are necessary for growth. Losses are necessary for me turning into the man that I need to be for my wife and sons, and the future leader that I'm going to be after the sport of mixed martial arts. And I think the manner in which you carry yourself and how you lose after a loss says a lot about how you are. And, I appreciate every opportunity that I have to speak on that. Morale is high. I honestly feel like win, lose, or draw, I am winning. I am I am winning at life. Life is good, man. And I just, I love what I do. I love what the UFC platform has given me. And I love doing what I do. I'm not fighting anytime soon. I'm going to spend the holidays, enjoying myself and enjoying my family. And we'll figure out the first of the year when I go back into the training camp for the next appearance, which will be obviously extremely huge.
Yeah, that's awesome, man, because we don't always hear that in the sport. We hear that the losses in the sport stay with you until you get a win, and that they eat at you and they haunt you. I mean, we hear stories about that like every day. So when fighters do embrace defeat, or not even to embrace it, but deal with it really well, it's great to see. It's a very positive thing to see. Have you gone back and watched the fight?
I haven't.
You haven't? How come?
I've meant to like 4 or 5 times. I just haven't really. I mean, I don't think I'm going to watch it and be disappointed. I really don't. I really just am just enjoying life. It's almost like I wanted to flip the switch off of fighting, because I've just been ingrained in it for the last 12 weeks, thinking about Poirier, thinking about Madison Square Garden, thinking about, these training camps are tough. Not just, I mean, the hardest part is leaving my family and feeling like a failure as a father and a failure as a husband, because every Wednesday morning I wake up knowing that my wife has got to take the trash down on Wednesday morning, that she has to take the trash out. Every morning I wake up knowing my son, I check the little baby monitor, and I can see my son, I can see his eyes open, and I know he's going to go downstairs, and dad's not going to be there, So, it's in those moments that you really realize that the sacrifices that you're making are for your children, they're for your wife, they're for the betterment of your life. But, I've just been present, man, just being here and taking my son to school every day and picking him up from school every day. And just the pride and the happiness and the joy that he has, man, just it's so much better than all the money and the lights and the platform and the belts and all that kind of stuff that we could possibly win in this sport. So I just haven't watched it because I've just been being dad and being husband. It's been good.
That makes sense. Soaking it in. I guess when you do watch the fight, what do you what do you think you'll be interested to look at? Like what do you think you're going to be looking for when you rewatch it?
Well, the armchair quarterbacks have been aplenty, and they have been vocal, and they say I would venture to say that I think I fought a pretty decent fight. I think I went out there, as I always do, with my foot on the gas, trying to finish Dustin Poirier really quick. If I couldn't, I was going to go out there. I was going to take him down. I was going to wrestle him. I was going to beat him up on the ground. I did that in the second round. Third round, I went out there and slugged it out a little bit, tried to get the takedown. Blood and sweat and lack of grips had other plans for me. Ended up getting my back taken, which is a position that I normally always get out of. You saw it with Charles Oliveira, the best grappler on the planet. You saw it in other fights that I've been in. And I went back and I saw a clip on Instagram of me breathing in that third round when he had my back. And I'm just going, because not only is a guy trying to take your head off at Madison Square Garden, the world's most iconic arena, under the brightest lights and biggest platform of all time, but you can't breathe out of your nose. And you got blood gushing out of your nose and also down the back of your throat that you're literally aspirating into your lungs and choking on. So, I think I'll be disappointed that was the first time that I've been submitted in my life, for sure. The vision of me actually tapping. But I think at that point, tried to pull it off, wasn't there. He's got long, slender arms. His hand felt like it was a million miles away. Couldn't find it. Knew I was about to go out. At that point in time, what do I got left to prove, Brett? What do I have left to prove? So I was in a position where I was, it was checkmate at that point. Maybe some people would call me a coward for that. I don't know, but here we are. Maybe I'm worried about calling myself a coward. Maybe that's what I'm really worried about. But
for not going out.
Submission happens.
That's what you're saying, for not going out. I mean, the choke was there. Like, if we're being honest, it was there. It's like you said, what do you got to prove at that point? You weren't getting out of that. I'm pretty sure you were not getting out of that choke. What else have the armchair quarterbacks been saying? I'm curious, because I've kind of seen some takes on the fight. I even had a take on the fight. What else have they been saying about it?
I mean, it's more just Chandler chokes in the big moments. Chandler starts off too fast. Chandler brawls. Chandler, and I've really been trying to unpack this thing and trying to verbalize it. The way that I fight, yes, I get it's entertaining, but you can't, just because it's entertaining, you can't negate the fact that it is a plausible game plan for success in the sport of mixed martial arts. You got to realize that you're fighting another human being who has doubts, fears, insecurities, second guessing themselves, and positions where they don't want to be in. And one of those positions is a guy breathing down their neck in their face with the foot on the gas and constantly putting pressure on them. Just like punches, kicks, knees, elbows, submissions, and grappling are techniques in the sport of mixed arts, so is pressure, so is presence, so is pressing a guy and playing to his spirit and trying to break his spirit. So, my style, while of course, yeah, it's wildly entertaining, and I've become probably the most exciting guy in the sport, must-see TV. I also think there's some benefits to that, not just from a standpoint of selling pay-per-views and the UFC loving my fight style and Dana calling me the Arturo Gatti, but also the technique and game plan aspect of it, that a lot of guys wilt under that pressure. If I don't fight that same way against Dan Hooker, I don't knock him out in the first round. If I don't fight that same way, continuing to put the pressure on Tony Ferguson, I don't knock him out. All the finishes and wins that I've had in my previous career before the UFC, I don't finish those fights if I don't have this style. It is my style, and I have embodied it, and I do it better than anyone else. And people are all the beneficiaries of it because they love to watch it.
Yeah, it is your style, and it's not really a style that you can kind of pick and choose, I guess, when you're going to use it. It kind of has to be all the time. It does, like my take on it, I think, was similar to some others, is that you're so all gas all the time. And that it's just almost, because everybody sees your workout clips. Everybody knows you're in great shape coming into a fight. Everybody sees your physique. It's hard to maintain that for 5 minutes, and I'm not even talking about 15-minute fight. I'm talking about just to keep that pressure on for even 5 minutes, like a 5-minute round. Like, you start, especially against a guy like Dustin Poirier, who is seasoned and experienced, like, even just like if your speed drops just a little bit in the last minute of a 5-minute round, that's when he cracks you, and you're backing up at the end of the first round. So I guess, like, even like, do you have these conversations with Henry Hoof? Like, I think Henry is one of the top coaches in the sport. Like, what does he say about like your pace, and what does he say about like the risk and reward, scenarios of your pace?
We talk about it, but I think I would challenge. So I actually would go back to what Dustin Poirier said to Daniel Cormier before the fight. He said, if Chandler goes out there and tries to brawl with me, I'm going to eat him up, or I'm going to mop him up, or whatever he said. And I would actually challenge that, because I think me fighting with less of a pace opens me up even more to get countered, opens me up even more to get picked apart and mopped up, as Dustin said. If you've heard it said, your offense is your defense. I think my offense is also my defense. When I'm in your face and I'm putting that pace on you, I'm also taking away your ability to engage in those striking exchanges where you're at your range. You can see things, because chaos will make cowards of a lot of people. And it has in a lot of times in my fights. But yeah, as far as me and Henry talking about it, we've talked about it. Haven't put a ton of emphasis on it, obviously, with changing my style or whatnot. I'm trained every single time I stepped into the octagon. Henry Hooft is the best striking coach on the planet. But yeah, I don't really know kind of where to go from there. But sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
It's a tough thing to dissect, right? I mean, like we said, you have a few more seconds in the first round against Charles Oliveira. You're a champion, and we're not talking about any of this, so it is just kind of like I don't know if you got to see the main event, probably not, but like Israel Adesanya knocking Alex Pereira down at the last second of the first round, he goes on to lose that fight. But if tiny little things go different in this sport, it changes the entire narrative. So
yeah, that's what it's so interesting too, as we talk about the armchair quarterbacks, and you're not playing a football game, and you're not running a NASCAR race. I mean, these are all of these one little split second decisions that you're trying to make with the best information that you have, or you're just in the flow state, or you're just in the middle of chaos. You're in the middle of not even controlled chaos. You're in the middle of chaos. And the fans and the onlookers of the sport think, well, that was a dumb decision. Why did he do that? Well, dummy, I didn't really actually cognitively sit down, write out a pros and cons list of what I should do here and make a conscious decision. I'm making a decision tied onto a tornado with a gun to my head at every single moment, right? So that's where you just look at it and just say, gosh, dude, I can either be mad at you guys, I could throw venom back at you, I could insult you like you're insulting me, or just say, gosh, what a beautiful freaking sport, man. What a beautiful sport. What a beautiful platform, especially UFC has given us. And it's like we said, man, me lifting Poirier up over my head, taking him down. I got his back almost. We're so slippery and so sweaty. And then he gets on top of me and takes my back. Like, that just happens. It's just part of the sport.
Yeah, 100%. You're starting to get like that, that label of, doesn't matter if Michael Chandler wins or loses, man. We love his fights. Do you want that label? Is that a label that you want?
It's a label I'm here for, man. Like I said, I wasn't here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. And I am actually allergic to it's not even possible for me to have a boring fight. Even if I went there and fought at 50% of the pace that I normally fight at, I'm going to go out there and still be the most exciting guy on the card. I have stolen the show every single time that I've stepped into the UFC octagon. I don't care if it's world champion fights. I don't care if it's Conor McGregor on the card fighting Poirier. I've gone out there and I've stolen the show. Do people say that's, ill-advised? It's at some point. Yeah, absolutely. But I also am just in there doing what I was called to do. Maybe I could think a little bit cognitively. Maybe I could take my foot off the gas a little bit, but that is the label that I want. I do think I'm one of the biggest draws in the sport right now. I will put butts on seats and I will sell pay-per-views. So it's working out really well.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get to this part where I'm sure you were expecting this, and you talked about it post-fight. You did come and do a press conference post-fight, and you talked about it that night. Now that you've had, about a week, and I'm sure you've been getting some comments on this. What are your thoughts on the fish hooking accusations and the back of the head accusations? Have there been a lot of them? And what do you think about them now after the dust has settled a little bit?
There has not been a lot of, it's, Twitter here and there. Twitter, everything on Twitter is negative. So you wouldn't expect somebody to stick up for you on Twitter. You wouldn't expect somebody to give you a compliment on Twitter. The back of the head, I will address both differently. The back of the head thing is completely farce. The referee was right there. I was catching his ear with every single shot. Maybe one shot punched him in the back of the head, but that happens every single fight. And he turned his head into me. So the referee is right there, and the onus is on the fighter to not punch in the back of the head. But the even bigger onus is for the referee to be there. And they tell you this in the back locker room. Hey, if you're doing something illegal or something I don't like, I will warn you first. You wait for the warning, and then you change your course of action. How many punches did you see to the back of the head? Am I missing something here? Brett, your honest opinion.
Yeah, it's about what you said. In that one position, and he was tucked like this. It did look like you were throwing him, but you're right. Mergliata was very quick to call it. And then you guys were almost, all three of you were like, both of you were looking at him and he was talking to you. It's almost like the fight paused for a little bit.
Yes. And they always say, this is the illegal part right here. If you notice, I'm not touching the ear. So you can actually technically touch the ear or punch them in the back of the ear, and it's not technically the back of the head. And these are also hammer fists. So you got to remember too, the striking apparatus is this long, right? So the hand and the wrist or the hand or the wrist was catching the ear. So, as soon as he said something, obviously I stopped. It wasn't like I was like, yeah, screw you, I'm punching him in the back of the head. And he also did turn his head. So you also can't, if an opponent turns his head to make you punch him in the back of the head, you get one free strike while they tell you to change. And then if you continue to do it, then they're going to stop the fight or start to take a point away. So back of the head, I'm not worried about. Fish hooking, yes, my hand went into his mouth because I drilled reaching down, grabbing the chin, lifting it up and going for the rear naked choke about 1,000 times. So when I reached down there and grabbed the top of his mouthpiece, which I now realize it was, or grabbing his mouthpiece, obviously it's the same shape as the chin. In my mind-body connection, going off of muscle memory. A fish hook is the lip If you saw me ripping his lip and his skin, yeah, that's official. But me grabbing his mandible, if you will, or grabbing his jaw, I mean, do I need to apologize for it? Not necessarily. You're in the heat of the moment, and the referee is there to protect both fighters. But I will, if people want me to apologize, I'm sorry. I'm not a cheater. I love the sport too much to cheat. I've never cheated in my entire life. Yeah. People can call me a dirty fighter if they want, but that's about 1% of the population out there. But, you know, it didn't change the course of the fight. Had I caught him in a choke by grabbing his mouthpiece, yeah, I would definitely not feel good about that. And obviously it probably would have been overturned anyway. Back of the head shots were null and void. It was not part of, not even part of the conversation in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an understandable explanation as to what happened. I think if there's another reason why people probably will not believe you or think that you're being not fully truthful about that, it's because Dustin will push that narrative, because Dustin was pretty certain he wasn't entirely, disgusted with it, but he was pretty clear. He's like, that was intentional and he's dirty. He was saying those types of things. Like, it was interesting. You guys had your little thing before. You ran into each other at an arena at a fight. Then you fought each other. Kind of looked like it was done, but it still feels like after all this that maybe there is something there. Like, is there just something there between you and Dustin that probably exists forever now?
Maybe I will lose zero sleep over Dustin Poirier. I'll tell you that much. I mean, I can tell you this right now: Dustin Poirier is losing a lot more sleep over me than I am of him.
What makes you say that?
Now, I'm not here to talk about Dustin Poirier. And yeah, I mean, I just trust me. He's losing a lot more sleep over me than I am over him. I am living an absolute dream. I am so happy with my life. I am so happy with my second career that I get to now engage in after leaving Bellator and going to the UFC. I am firing all cylinders. I love the UFC. They love me. I am a happy camper. If he wants to go out there and push a narrative that I'm a dirty fighter, that's cool. Him and all 7 people out there who think that, that's fine. I could care less. The vast majority, lion's share of the mixed martial arts community knows exactly who I am, and they will continue to stay steadfast that I'm a guy who does things right, and I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this journey, and it's a very good, awesome, mutually symbiotic relationship between myself, the fans, the UFC, and life is good. So
yeah, you're very clearly enjoying it every step of the way. I can tell. I mean, it's very, very evident how much you're enjoying this chapter of your life.
Yeah, I almost feel bad even talking about it, because I am it's almost like you should not even be able to live with this much joy and happiness about your career and your sport, because we all want to find what's wrong with things. We all want to find how our employer's screwing us. We all want to find how, not me, man, dude, I am living a dream, so I don't know, man. Life is good.
And you can feel that. I mean, obviously you can feel it in the interviews that you do and the social media posts you do, but like when you're walking out too, I mean, everybody has a different kind of energy when they walk out. Like yours is just high octane energy when you're walking out. It's in Madison Square Garden with your walkout music and everything else. It does make me think about, because obviously, where does the conversation move now? What's next for you? And I am like everybody else. And I'm not saying this just because it's probably what you want to hear. You versus Conor McGregor makes a ton of sense. Just the energy of that, the build up to it, the fighting style of it, it all checks every box that it makes sense. How confident are you? Like how optimistic are you? How hopeful are you? Like, is there anything that you can do to try to make it happen that you haven't already done? Like, is that where your head's at? And what do you think is going to happen with it?
Well, I do think that's the fight to make. When you're talking about Conor McGregor being on the other side of this, 2-person engagement that we have to get into, Conor's got every opportunity on the entire planet at his disposal. Does he need to come back? Absolutely not. Does he want to come back? We don't know. That's up to Conor. If he does want to come back, who in the heck else do you want to be standing on the other side of the octagon than me right now at this juncture? We're the same size. We're the same weight. I am arguably, man, it's hard too, because I'm not a self promoter. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the most exciting guy on the roster. I'm not going to sit here and say I am the guy who is a huge pay-per-view draw. It just doesn't seem right, because I am me and I'm in my own little microcosm of Michael Chandler's little life here in Nashville, Tennessee. But when you look at it on the world stage, and you look at the response, and you look at, like you said, the diehard, I don't care who he's fighting, when he's fighting, where he's fighting, I am tuning in and buying the pay-per-view for a Michael Chandler fight. Mm-hmm. man, those people are coming out of the woodworks, and it's crazy the amount of buzz that is on me, my fight style, my fights every single time. And the UFC knows it. I think Conor knows it. Conor's team knows it. The whole world of mixed martial arts knows it. So if he comes back, when he comes back, man, I'm going to take a little bit of time off, obviously, to heal up and make sure I take care of my family and take care of my body. I think the timeline works out really, really well. Whenever he wants to come back, and tell me who's a bigger draw or a bigger fight than me and Conor right now. I just don't know. I mean, the only thing is I'm definitely not an easy fight. If you look at like, okay, risk versus reward of who's a big name, but also, hey, I need to go out there and smash somebody. There's some easier fights than me, but is there a bigger fight than me? I don't think so. I really don't. And it feels weird saying that, but I do not think so.
Yeah, no, I will go on record and say I agree with you. I mean, even if he were to fight for a lightweight championship, I mean, I love Alex Volkanovski, love Islam Makhachev. Alex Volkanovski is my number one pound for pound fighter in the world. Islam right there. And if Islam beats Alex, he could be number one pound for pound fighter in the world. But in terms of just storyline and appeal, mass appeal, casual appeal, everything else, just mainstream appeal, I think that is the fight to make. Has it reached a point where you will actually be disappointed if it never happens?
At this point, yes, I do think so. When my first fight in the UFC, when I called out Conor McGregor, surprise, surprise, there's a new king in the lightweight division. Calling him out after the Tony Ferguson knockout with the big snip. Like, people love that stuff. Those were moments where it's like, hey, we're getting the momentum rolling. But at this point, I mean, man, with my tenure in the UFC, and I think Conor's different than a lot of people think he is. People think just because he's got a couple $100 million in the bank and he lives this crazy lavish lifestyle, that he's not still just a competitor at heart who loves competition and loves to see other people who love competition. He's a purist at heart. And I think he sees the way that I live my life, the way that I live this sport, the way that I train, the things that I stand for, the way that I really wear my heart on my sleeve. We got a different accent, but we're saying a lot of the same things. He might be a little bit more braggadocious, but we're saying the same things in a different way. So I think he respects that. But so I just think there's so many ways to look at this and say, yeah, at this point, it would be somewhat of a letdown and a disappointment if it never happens. And people will say I'm chasing the red panty night, and they're saying I'm chasing the payday and the payday. And yes, of course, that's part of it. It's always going to be a part of it, that part of the conversation that people are going to talk about when you're talking about fighting Conor McGregor. But man, I want battlegrounds of epic proportions. I want the brightest lights. I want the biggest platforms. I want to be able to go out there on the verge of a heart attack because the moment is so big. And what is bigger than fighting Conor McGregor? And at this point, him coming back, what is bigger than Conor McGregor stepping into the octagon with got to be the most electrifying guy in the UFC right now?
Yeah.
It feels hard for me to say that, but I think it's the truth. So I think it's the biggest fight to make. It's the most pay-per-view sales that can be made right now at this current juncture in the entire world of mixed martial arts. I think Conor knows it. I think the UFC knows it. And I think it's going to happen International Fight Week of 2023.
In Allegiant Stadium. Let's put it in Allegiant Stadium.
Hey, come on now. See, now you're speaking my language. Yes, yeah. I like that.
That's where to have it. Yeah, man. I think that's a great place to end it. Other than, I guess I should ask if, because waiting for a Conor McGregor fight can sometimes feel like trying to stand in the right place to get caught by lightning. I think I texted you that the other day.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's like, if it's March, if it's April, and it's like we're looking at the USADA pool and Conor still hasn't been drug tested, and so it's looking like it's just you're kicking the can down month after month. What interests you at this point? What kind of opportunities, what kind of fights, other than obviously a Conor McGregor super fight, what would interest you?
Well, some interesting news did come out finally yesterday. My boy Gilbert Burns looks like he's finally going to get that George Masvidal fight. I know they've been going back and forth for a while. But you tell me who the BMF is right now in the UFC. You tell me who the BMF is. You tell me who the fans, if we did a poll right now, who's the baddest mother fudger in the UFC? I think I got a couple awards on my mantle right now. I think I'll add a couple more, possibly knockout of the year, possibly fight of the year of 2023. But that BMF belt sure would look good next to him. Is it a fight that I've really thought about a ton in the past? Not really. But dadgum, tell me that wouldn't get the juices flowing of the entire mixed martial arts world. Michael Chandler versus George Masvidal for the BMF belt. The Rock walking in with it over his shoulder and then handing it to me 15 minutes later.
For sure. It does seem like, and I know that, I mean, you're obviously a very competitive person. You want to be the best in the world, but do you feel yourself kind of leaning towards bigger moments rather than a belt? And not in a sense of like, you don't want to prove you're the best, but just like, that's what gets you up. That's what would get you through a training camp. That's what would wake you up in the morning, that kind of stuff.
I think they both do. Cause like I said, battlefields of epic proportions, man, these huge moments that people wait for months for them to finally get there, and they wake up like it's Christmas morning. Mm-hmm. You know, you wake up like it's Christmas morning in July because Chandler and McGregor are fighting in 12 hours time. Chandler or Masvidal are fighting in 12 hours time. You're waking up and you remember what it felt like as a 7-year-old kid running down there to see if Santa took a bite of your cookies and your milk, and you want to see the gifts underneath the tree. That's what we want to give people. That's what I was put on this earth to give people. These earth-shattering moments where it's an out-of-body experience for everybody involved. I think obviously it getting announced that Volkanovski was getting Islam's first title defense, the UFC can do what they want. I love that they've put themselves in a position where they can make whatever decision they want to with their organization. But there's fights that are constantly happening all the time, and you never quite know when you're going to get a title shot, how close you are to a title shot. Am I closing the door on me winning the title? Absolutely not. I think I still will be able to go out there, string together some wins and get that belt. I do. Do I think it's my next fight? Absolutely not. Do I think it's 2 fights from now? Absolutely not. So that's a little bit further down the line. And there's some other work that can be done, and some other things that can be accomplished, and some other hearts and minds and souls that can be tugged on big time by me going out there and displaying my performances, with epic names, epic stages, epic platforms, and like I said, epic battlefields that make people feel something. I'm in this sport to make people feel something, and I've done that since September 19th of 2020 when I signed with the organization, and now here we are just 2 years later, and I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find a guy who's put in more work at a faster breakneck speed, faster breakneck pace than I have just in the last 5 fights, fighting the toughest guys possible.
Yeah.
The very first moment I had my meeting with Hunter, I shook his hand. I said, I want to be a good thing for your organization. I want to fight the toughest SOBs on the entire planet right away. And I've made good on that promise, and the UFC has made good on that promise. And here we are talking to you, and life is good. My cup is full.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you can see why the relationship is mutually beneficial. They like exciting guys who fight frequently, and you like big stages, which they provided you. So hopefully, man, July next year they'll bring you another big stage, and you will get that Conor McGregor fight. I think that makes a ton of sense, and it would be a lot of fun to be talking about that fight come July of next year. But in the meantime, man, enjoy your family, enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you at the top in 2023. Yeah,
you at the top, baby. I appreciate you, Brad. Thank you, man.
All right.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.